So this is the second movie about our new services symbols plugin objects. And before I go too much into how you create the symbols, I just wanted to talk a little bit about symbols in Vectorworks and a feature of the symbols that we utilize in these plugins. And that is the ability to create a symbol that does scale when you put it on different layers, such as a door or a window or a table or something that has a physical size, and that's known as a world-based symbol, compared to a symbol that doesn't change size. For example, something like a drawing marker or the representation of a light switch or a hose cock or something like that always appears at the same size, and these are known as page-based symbols. Now we can see those in Vectorworks, and I'll give you an example of both first. Moving to a layer that has one each of those kinds of symbols on it, and this is from our site services plugin object. You can see here we've got good old Aussie Hills hoist, and it's a 4.5 meter unit, and obviously if we put that at 1 to 50, we want it to dimension at 4.5 meters. Whereas when we put a valve box in at 1 to 50 or 1 to 100 or 1 to 200, we want that valve box to be that size always. Okay, so this symbol here is a page-based symbol, in other words one that doesn't scale, and this is a world-based symbol, one that does scale. So let's go to a layer that has a different scale. So we're now on a 1 to 20 layer. You can see that our clothesline is still measuring 4.5 meters, but it's at 1 to 20, it's bigger on the page. And our little page-based symbol, the water valve box, is still the same size. So let's take a look at how you can identify those kinds of symbols. And if we look in the resource browser, when you use any of these three tools, electrical, plumbing, or site services, a folder will be created in your file called electrical services symbols, site services symbols, or plumbing services symbols, and the symbols that are imported will be put into those folders. Let's have a look into the site services symbols folder, and in here straight away you can see a difference between these two symbols. This one has green writing, and if I hover the cursor over it, you can see that it actually says it's a 2D page-based symbol, and if I hover the cursor over this one, it just says it's a 2D symbol, which means that it's a scaling, it's a symbol that's going to scale. So how do you set these? Well, you can set it when you create the symbol. It's one of the options you're given when you create a symbol. You can also go back and change it after the event by editing the symbol. Right click in the resource browser, choose edit, click symbol options, and here it is up here, page based, world based. So this one's page based, and if we look at this one here, edit, this one is world based. Okay, so that's kind of important. So with that concept under your belt, let's just have a quick look at the symbols that are come with these plugin objects. So here are the plumbing symbols. Now most of the plumbing symbols are world-based, so sinks and urinals, basins, baths. You want these to appear at the size that that's been nominated. Here is some fire equipment: a fire hydrant, booster, hose reel. Typically these are representational symbols and will appear at the same size regardless of the layer scale. Let's take a look at our electrical symbols. All of the electrical symbols are world-based, so possibly with the exception of the ceiling fan. To be honest, I can't remember, but pretty well they're all page-based symbols. And with our site symbols, well, this is a bit of a mixture. For our landscape, light, and power, these are not going to scale. Obviously for our clothesline and wheelie bins and a couple of gate symbols here and our soak wells, these are going to scale, the stormwater grates and so on. So there's a mixture of these things, and depending on how it's defined will determine how it's defined in the symbol, will determine then how the various 3 tools interpret it when it's placed on the drawing. Okay, so let's go in and then look at how you might construct this symbol. I might just switch back to this drawing here, and let's zoom in on this symbol so we can see it. So here's the symbol here, and just to remind you, it was a water valve box. You can see it's got some edit text there, VB, and I can access that. I can choose to keep it horizontal, and you'll see if I rotate the symbol, the text stays horizontal with that box checked. If I need to move the text, I can get it to display a little control point there, which allows me to move the text. I can override the text in the symbol. So initially it will use whatever text was defined in the symbol definition, but occasionally you may want to make that bigger or smaller, and so you can. We also have the ability to override the text fill, and we recommend you put fill behind the text, and then you can turn that off by simply checking that box in the symbol. The height above finished floor, that's important, we'll talk about that. Now if this option here, show 3D, is grayed out, it means this symbol doesn't have any 3D component. Okay, so let's go in and take a look at this symbol, and we'll edit this, edit 2D component. So here's our symbol. Now if you want to have any edit text in the symbol, it must be at the root level of the symbol. In other words, when you select it, you should be able to see it says text, and you should be able to see exit group. What you don't want to see is a situation where you've grouped it and now you're inside a group. See, this now says exit group, so that means this is in a group inside a symbol. That's not going to work. We need to have this ungrouped so that your 2D objects are free here and your text is here as well. Okay, you can put any 2D objects in here, not another 2D symbol, but anything apart from that, and those will all scale up or down or however you've created them. Now if you want to create edit text, in other words text that you can change on an instance by instance basis, then you're going to want to prefix your text by #1#. It's the same as the space tool and the multi-stamp tool. So that's just an identifier saying, hey, I'm a bit of text and I'm going to be editable. And this second component of the text block is the default value that the text gets. So you'll see #1#, so that's the text in the symbol, but when we've placed the symbol, all that's come out is the VB bit, and that was our default value as defined up here in the symbol. So that way you can kind of have the best of both worlds. You can put a default value in there, which is probably going to get used 90 or 95% of the time, but you may have occasion where just the text in the symbol is going to change, and so this way you can, rather than having to create another symbol, you can simply just change the text. It makes it a lot easier. So essentially that's it. It's fairly simple. The other important thing is the naming of the symbol. Okay, now you'll notice that the category and item here is the same as the 2 words in the symbol. The symbol name is, let's hover over that, is water ... valve box. Okay, or water ... valve box. So you must use that naming convention in your symbols. So the first word that precedes the ... will be the category the symbol is in, and currently for our site services we have these categories, but if you create a symbol and put it in there with another category in there, that's fine. It's going to appear in this category list as well. So you know, whatever you want to do to edit these categories or add other ones, you can do that. And the category is the first part of the symbol name. The second part of the symbol name that comes after the ... is the item. So in other words, valve box, stop valve, water marker, tap, and so on. So just to confirm that, let's just go to rename this symbol, and there you can see the name. We've got water, dot dot in the middle there, and then the second part, valve box. Now you can use single dots elsewhere in this symbol, but don't use in this symbol name, but don't use a double dot anywhere else, because these tools go looking at the symbol names and it looks for the first instance of the double dot, and then it uses the text before the double dot to give you the category and the text after the double dot to give you the item. Okay, so that's important with your naming. Now in the actual symbol files themselves, if we go to our site symbols and make this active, all of the symbols must be at the root level in this file. No symbol folders in here. Okay, just put the symbols in the file. The symbol folders only get created when you use the tool in your working drawings. So scrolling down through the list here, you can see the black symbols and green symbols. So there's a variety of them in this file here, and as we've talked about before. Now the final thing I wanted to mention was the 3D component of the symbol. Now if it's a world-based symbol, in other words a symbol that changes size depending on the layer scale, then just put any 3D component in there you like. It's just going to behave like a normal symbol and appear at whatever size you've defined it at. Let's take a look at our electrical symbols, because in this file we have defined some of these symbols to have a 3D component. And the power ones here are ones in particular, light switches are another, and some of the light fittings themselves as well. Let's take a look at the ones in this file, and we'll go down to something that we've got, go down to the power. Okay, so you'll see that this says 2D 3D page-based symbol. Okay, 2D 3D, so you can tell by looking at by hovering over these whether they're 2D and 3D symbols. And the 3D component in these symbols behaves like a world-based symbol, so it actually does scale. So when you define these page-based symbols that don't scale, it's only the 2D bit for these particular objects that won't scale. The 3D bit will scale, and the reason that we've done that is because it gives you the opportunity to put a 3D representation in for example, a PowerPoint. Then when you cut a section through a model, you're going to see a little box on the wall that you're able to throw a dimension in for to specify the height of the PowerPoint. So it would be no good just seeing a representation of that, and you might want to define the exact width of a light switch or a PowerPoint or a wall light or something, but importantly be able to dimension, to throw a dimension on the drawing showing the height of it above finished floor or something like that. So let's go in and look at one of these symbols that has a 3D component. So this time we'll go Edit and 3D Component, Edit. And so here's the 3D component, and you'll see in this case that it's a 120 by 120 by 10 box that we've created, and the bottom of it is -60, is set at -60. So being 120 overall, it means that the 0 point in this 3D object is the center of the object. Okay, now that's important because if we go to this file here and maybe we put in an electrical symbol, let's just, okay, we've got a double PowerPoint, let's put that in. So when you do have one that does have a 3D component, you've got the mounting height above finished floor. So wherever you've defined that 3D component, if you've defined it with its center at 0, then this 300 is going to measure to the center of that 3D object. if you define that 3D object so that the bottom of the 3D object is at 0, then when you place it in the drawing and you specify a mounting height of 300 or 1 meter or 1500, then that dimension is going to be to the underside of the object. Okay, so in this drawing here, this does have a 3D component. So you see, if I go to a front view, there is the representation of this in 3D space. You'll see that this would be 0. Actually, let me just put a 3D locus point in here just so that you're clear. I'll put the locus point in there and I'll set that to 0. Okay, so there's 0. This is the representation of our PowerPoint in 3D. We've got the mounting height set at 300 millimeters. So if I take the dimension tool here and I dimension up to here, it's going to dimension to 300 millimeters, hopefully. I don't want that snapped on there. Or 315, I guess something's out, but I think you get the gist of what I'm talking about. So if I set this to 1 meter, then this is going to dimension at 1 meter. So that way, in your sections and things, you can get these things showing up and get some representation of how it might be in a 3D space. So that's how you define the 3D component of the symbol. And I think that that pretty well covers it for the symbol creation.